Reporting from Reliant Stadium in Houston, Texas, for Jacksonville.com, this is Gene Frenette, sports columnist for the Florida Times Union, along with Jaguars beat writer Vito Stellino. After yet another disappointing Jaguars performance here tonight, their fifth loss in the last 6 games, the Jaguars fall to the Texans 30-17. And what makes matters worse is that it was yet another trend of a team that's just a season that's just tail spinning worse. Last week there was the embarrassing performance against the Vikings, and tonight, quite frankly, wasn't a whole lot better. Very misleading that the Jaguars ended up scoring 17 points because they only had 3 points until the last 2.5 minutes of the game. But Vito, it just seems like no matter what button the Jaguars push, nothing seems to be going right for them.
Yeah, they kept talking after the game about, we got to execute better. It reminds me of the old John McKay line when he was coaching the 2014 Tampa Bay Bucks, and he was asked, what do you think of their execution? He said, I'm all in favor of it. And that's about where the Jaguars are standing now. Last week, Jack said it was unacceptable. This week, he just seemed to be kind of resigned. He just talked about, well, if we'd done this a little better. But this is a team that's lost concentration. It's lost focus. The worst thing I thought was that I thought they would really put emphasis on their first offensive series, because last week they botched the very first offensive play. I thought there'd be a lot of focus on, hey, we at least got to come out and run a good first series, and they have false starts on the first 2 plays. That's a team that's just not concentrating, has just lost its focus, and it certainly looks like they've just packed in the season and are just playing out the string.
Well, speaking of first series, the Texans certainly had no problem executing on their first series, marching right down the field, getting out to a 7-0 lead, getting this battle red crowd of 70,000 going, and they had the energy. All game long, the Jaguars, they were struggling to find offensive rhythm. Their defense did a pretty good job, for the most part, keeping them in the game. But there was never any momentum, no mojo, no rhythm. Jerry Porter dropping a key third down pass. David Garrard had a terrible evening, twice falling backwards on plays, including one time on a 4th down and goal here at the 5-yard line. If the Jaguars had scored a touchdown there, the lead would have been cut to 16-10, and they would have had a chance to maybe pull it out, a game where they hadn't played well. But it seems like the way things have gone for the Jaguars the last month, if anything can go wrong with this team, it does.
Garrard said his foot was stepped on those 2 times he fell down. Again, that was Brad Mesa, the center. I guess maybe he missed so many games, but he and Garrard are just not in sync. When you have last week's botched snap, this week stepping on the foot. Del Rio called those deflators, but they looked deflated when they came out. As I say, the Texans came out with emotion. By the way, there were not 70,000 people here. That was the ticket sold. Looked like it was half full at best. But they still had a lot of energy. They were playing hard. They're 4-7. They haven't packed it in. And this is. They also use the word disappointing. It's beyond disappointing. They really have to look themselves in the mirror and try to figure out a way that to get themselves back on track, because it doesn't get much worse than this for a team that had so many high expectations.
Well, things have bottomed out for the Jaguars in more ways than one. Now they're by themselves in last place in the AFC South, which is something we haven't seen since 2003. And when you think about the last 4 games of this season, think about their last 4 opponents: Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers, Indianapolis Colts, and then the Baltimore Ravens. All 4 of those teams are still very much alive for the postseason, and the Jaguars have virtually been eliminated from the playoff race. They're not officially eliminated, but they probably will be next week. But you have to wonder if they can muster up any emotion for those games. Even the Thursday nighter against Indianapolis, they had a Monday night football appearance here, and they didn't seem to muster up a lot of emotion for the Texans. So you have to wonder if the Jaguars are about to descend into a 4-12 hole here.
They've got like a witch's brew of problems. They have a group of players who got big contracts, seem to be satisfied. A group of players who know they're gone, so they don't have much to play for. And a group of players who are unhappy that they didn't get big contracts. So it's just not a good chemistry mix. Now, even the players admitted the chemistry is not good on this team. And then you look at the future. Tennessee looks like they're just starting to run. The Colts manage to hold it together every year. The Texans look like an up-and-coming team if they get Matt Schaub back. They've got this Slayton kid, a good runner. Their defense is solid. I mean, the Jaguars could have trouble getting out of the last place next year, too.
Well, unfortunately, they're in last place now, and it doesn't look like a place they're going to get out of, at least any time this season. So there's not a lot of positive vibes to report here, but unfortunately it's been that way for the past month. 5 losses now in the last 6 games for the Jaguars. Now they have to go back on the road at Chicago before coming home for the last 2 games against Indianapolis and also Green Bay. And you got to think the Jaguar fans are not going to be terribly excited about those 2 games, and they have a right not to be. So it's going to be a long ride home for Jacksonville for the Jaguars tonight, and it's going to be a very long the rest of the season if they don't find some way to turn this around. Reporting from Reliance Stadium in Houston, Texas for Jacksonville.com, this is Gene Frenette and Vito Stellino.